Ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening to you all, and it is my pleasure to welcome you all to the BW Marketing World and DDB Mudra Digital Almanac 2022. My name is Khyati Kawa, and I will be your host for this evening. Thank you firstly for joining us in time, braving the Mumbai monsoons, and being present here today. So thank you so very much. I'm sure, just like us, we all are excited for what we have planned for you today. Before that, however, some requests from our end. As courtesy to our speakers and your fellow delegates, do please turn your phones on silent mode if you haven't done so already. Please take 30 seconds to do so right now. Also, if you wish to be part of the conversations on social platforms today, please join in the conversation using the hashtag BWDDBAlmanac. I will repeat the hashtag for you. It is BWDDBAlmanac. You can see it all across the stage as well. Now that the pleasantries are done, let me set the stage with a brief background. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't need to tell you this, but we all know that digital has been ruling the roost for a few decades now. Each year, consumers and companies have showered with newer digital capabilities that enable them to engage and advance in this new world. Certainly, the importance of digital transformation cannot be overlooked. With an aim to bring the multi-hyphenated personality of digital to the front seat, the BW Marketing World and DDB Mudra Almanac, a comprehensive document, talks on the many facets of digital. It delves into and unfolds digital's evolutions, its strengths, its impact on the media and marketing fraternity, and the ways to navigate it seamlessly. With its theme, Doing Digital Right, the Almanac and the sessions today will delve into the current day landscape of the digital ecosystem and help modern marketers to chart their upcoming strategies in an impactful manner. I hope all of you are as excited as we are to put up this show for you. It is now time to start the evening, but before I call on stage our first speaker, I would like to thank our partner for walking hand in hand with us for this summit. So can we have our partner audiovisuals, please?
What is it we do? We all know the line, right?
Creativity is the most powerful force in business.
But what does that mean today? And how will it let us grow tomorrow? Well, more so than ever, we're surrounded by stuff. It's a noisy, complicated mess out there. People don't know where to look. Creativity is the answer, because it's the idea that you didn't expect to see, that you can't take your eyes off. That's why creativity works. That's why it transforms businesses and careers. That's why it unlocks growth. Well, DDB is the home of those ideas, the workshop of the work you never saw coming, because what Bill knew all along is more powerful today than ever. It's only by doing the work nobody expected that you can achieve results beyond their expectations. So here at DDB, we have a simple belief, a promise we make to every colleague, every client, everywhere. Unexpected works.
How do you launch a global ad conglomerate's new brand positioning for all the world to see? You erect a billboard on a farm in New Zealand without a single human in sight. See, you're seeing it now. And now. And here it is again. Yep, and again. Wonder where the website goes? Well, maybe you should find out. You are on the internet. There it is again. So yeah, unexpected works. And again with the website.
Thank you so much. Can we hear a huge round of applause for BW Marketing World and DDB Mudra. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And now that we have warmed up this evening, I'd like to welcome on stage Mr. Ruhail Amin, Senior Editor, BW Businessworld, to present his opening comments on the launch of BW Marketing World and DDB Mudra Digital Almanac 2022. I'd like all of you to join me and welcome him with a warm applause. Can we all do that? Yes, thank you.
Thank you everyone for joining us today evening. I'm on behalf of Dr. Batra, who couldn't be here because he's down with COVID and it has come back. He so wanted to travel, but unfortunately he couldn't join us. And Noor Fatima Barsia, editorial director, who's also traveling, couldn't be here. But thank you everyone for making it possible despite these heavy rains that are lashing Mumbai. I'll just keep it brief. Today's event is the continuation of our association with the DDB Mudra Group, where earlier we have released a series of white papers looking at various aspects of the impact of digital. This BW Marketing World DDB Mudra Group Digital Almanac encapsulates the far-reaching presence and impact of digital, with experts getting into the roots of its various branches. It serves as a playbook for business leaders and modern marketers to stay relevant and strategize their objectives better, keeping their consumers at heart of all efforts. Of course, Mr. Ramon Sundaram is here. He will share more details on that. But I want to thank Mr. Aditya Kanti and Mr. Sundaram for giving us this opportunity where we have deep dived into the insights that will be shared with you. It's going to be an evening full of insights. I'm sure a lot of conversations are lined up. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask your speakers and your panelists. And thank you once again for joining us this evening.
Thank you so much, Ruhail, for setting the tone. The day ahead is very, very busy, and we're going to move really, really fast so that we stick to our timings. But ladies and gentlemen, it is now my pleasure to welcome Dr. Ram Mohan Sundaram, Country Head and Managing Partner, Integrated Media, DDB Media Group. Please join us.
Right. Ladies and gentlemen, My Tryst with Destiny, actually not the Nehru's book. I'm talking of My Tryst with Destiny. For me, destiny is indirect, simply because that's the first time my actual destiny changed. So I'm just going to go back in time, look at the year 1999, 2000. There's some people whom I met today from those years, and we were just chatting up, we were sitting outside. In 1999, I, for the first time, was introduced to the internet with a company called Media to India, which was part of the Micron Group, which launched a slew of products in the internet space, way ahead of its time. Now, in those days, and I was a salesman. I consider myself to be a sales guy even today. But at that point in time, the largest deal that ever happened in India was an 80 lakh deal from Compaq. So you can imagine my destiny first started with the internet back in 1999. And in Bangalore, I used to roam around in bikes, going around various agencies, trying to sell what we had. What you know today as DoubleClick by Google used to be Dart by DoubleClick. So that's the platform in which we were India. We were their representatives in India exclusively. So it was an ad platform. So that's when my first story actually began. And I remember in Bangalore, even today, out of home is a pretty distinctive differentiation when it comes to communication. So I remember going through MG Road, there used to be about 100 hoardings, which had all .com names, which included the likes of Why India, For India, We India, Chai Time. I don't know. There's so many of them that were there. The only one that lasted till now was India Times, Rediff, and India Info, which is another form today. But having gone through those days, I remember Gartner had released a report which said that India is going to see the revolution that it has never seen before. And our ad market size in digital that time was 150 crores. That also never happened. I don't know where that number came from, but people said that's the size of the market. And when I look at it when I look at it from the lens of what we were told back then by Gartner, it just made me feel that not just have I arrived in the internet space, because I'm going to now be part of a revolution which is just going to be phenomenal in nature. But the kind of numbers that they spoke of at that point in time made me wonder, how is it that people are, I mean, downloading a page was difficult. You used to dial up and then ding, bang, and all those sounds used to happen before 5 Mbps speed used to come from a modem. So at that time I spoke with somebody, I very clearly remember I said that there was no infrastructure in this country to support this kind of numbers. And when I look back, it's taken 16 years. That's a long period of time, right? 16 years to what a report said to what it is today. They were projecting all kinds of numbers that are actually happening 15 years hence. In 2015 is actually when India, I think, reached about 4,000 crores in digital, 4,000 or a little above 4,000 crores. But they had projected that number in 2000. So, and then the bust happened and all of that story which happened post-mortem, we can all sit and do. But that's when actually people realized what are the business models that are going to actually thrive with the audience in India. And you saw a whole host of corrections that happened. People never, I mean, the advertising story was out of the window simply because there was no penetration. In fact, India in 2000 was just 9 years young when the economy actually opened up in 91, right? So if television didn't have enough shape, there's no way that internet would have had any shape that Gartner had then projected. I clearly remember those reports. And so when over time I stopped believing in these reports simply because none of it actually came true. So I said, when I get an opportunity, I'll contribute to the ecosystem in a manner that's going to be meaningful. So during my entrepreneurial ventures in the past, I did try and do something which is known as AdTech and iMedia that all of you all know of today. But having said that, and being in an agency ecosystem, it was important to bring back some of those data points which are going to be of logic, and it's going to help people understand how to navigate the dynamic situation that exists, which is so fluid in nature. Now, when I say that, what I mean is, whoever thought that metaverse is going to be part of our ecosystem and there's going to be advertising opportunities 2 years ago, nobody knew. So gaming is so big because you and I don't play anything more than Candy Crush. Doesn't mean that there's not an ecosystem that is thriving on the gaming side of the ecosystem where advertising is so big, which is why we also have those brands advertise on television, whether it's a Dream 11 or any of the other brands which are there. So having said that, it became important for us as an agency to not just showcase what are important parameters of success for a market like India, but we also knew that there has to be some thought leadership around what is actually going to be of benefit for brands and advertisers to make it more meaningful. So given that, we launched, like Rohit mentioned, a series of white papers just to test waters, to be very honest. We circulated that digitally. We had some phenomenal responses. People participated very well. That made us a little bit more determined to bring out something which we call the Almanac, which actually is not just a 100-page book, but that's the first effort, right? Probably the next year, you'll have a lot more industry participation. Today you're seeing DDB here. I would not be surprised if there's a conglomerate outside of the Omnicom network, which also wants to participate in what we do, simply because it's important to take the business forward with the right understanding, because there's so much of data floating around across various touch points. If not for Geo in 2016, and I'm very glad that Gulshan is here, simply because it's a clear marriage of sorts of how infrastructure actually got built and how that is changing the dynamics of consumption of content, whether it's at the creators side of it or at the consumer side of it. So there is so much happening in that space. that we thought that as we bring out this book, this almanac out, you probably will find enough and more reasons to do what is right, and that's why the theme of doing digital right exists today. So I'm not going to take too much time. I'm just going to thank you all for having taken this time out. Like again, most of you all have braved the days in Mumbai, so thank you so much. And I want to let the stage be taken over by people who actually are in the thick of action, while we play a big supporting role to ensure that they succeed going forward. So with that, I will end, and hopefully the next 1 hour is going to be exhilarating. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sundaram, for that very informative session and actually setting the context for today's event. Now, there is a lot to take over in these couple of hours. Before I invite our super speakers today, I would like to remind them about the countdown monitor, which is in front of them. That will guide you, and when there would be a minute left on the clock, you will see me move up on stage. I'm sorry for that already, but I'm the designated timekeeper for this event too. Building on this, the next session comprises of a senior leader who will speak on the growth of the digital economy and how it will mature in the future. It is my pleasure to invite Mr. Gulshan Verma, CEO Jio Ads on stage. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and welcome him on stage.
Hello. Hi, can you hear me? It's always tough coming after because he gets the audience so excited, so interested that you feel like the wind down act after Ram. But I'll say one thing, which is Ram and I worked together, and I consider him one of my mentors back in 2008 when I landed in India, and we used to work at Yahoo. I remember that, and people used to walk into our office thinking it was an internet cafe, because we were next to Coffee Cafe, and people used to walk in our go down office and come in, and there was like 4 of us in the room, and we would just kind of wander in and out. And from that, I think Ram has been at the beginning of a lot of different, trends. I think he was helping build Jio, before it was launched, and I was a big part of that kind of success. Anyway, hopefully it's a presentation. I have some things on it, and what I really wanted to cover was a couple of thoughts on where I think the Indian digital economy is going to want to develop. Okay, let's see if it works. Yes. Bear with me. Oh, this will move. No. There's a lot of conversations about whether it's going to be a 5 trillion economy or a 4 trillion economy. I was watching Mr. Jay Shankar, foreigners, talk about whether the 5th or 6th largest economy, whether it be we just went through our 75th independence, and whether we're going to be a 5 trillion economy. But ultimately, what I'm trying to say here, it's been said best by global chairman, is this: it's happening. Whether it happens now, whether it happens in 28 or 29 or 32, I think this is going to be a place where the next 15 years will show the growth of India. But I want to talk about what that means, and let me just talk about it in ways that kind of make sense, at least for me. This is analysis done by, I think it was BCG for World Economic Forum a couple of years ago. And it talks about India from an income perspective. And in 2005, when Ram and I were kind of trying to figure out how digital work in different, we had 1 million households in the country that earned more than $40,000 a year. We had 16 million households in India that earned around about, $8,500 a year. And that makes sense, okay? Back in 2018, before all this COVID pandemic and all this other stuff, we had 8 million households who earned what I call, some people call the California style of living, but actually, it's a Western style of living. And we had 61 million households that earned more than $8,500 a year. And roughly that's about what? Somewhere between 6 and 8 lakhs, depending on the exchange rate. But let's translate to what that really means, because that's actually the consuming class that we all use in our customers. 8 million households is the size of the Netherlands. So 3 years ago, 4 years ago, when we were talking to our consumer set, we had 8 million households that, we had a Netherlands economy spread across 1.2 billion people. The 61 million households is what I call the size of an Indonesia. So the economy that we're talking about, and this is not that long ago, it's 5 years, is that we have, sure, I'll talk about it. But fundamentally, what we were, the consuming class in India was the Netherlands and Indonesia. 8 years from now, whether it's 8 years, whether it's 28, which is 5 years, or whether it's 2 years later on, the direction is there. We will have 29 million households earning what I call a Western class. And there's purchasing power parity, there's a bunch of other things. But fundamentally, that's really what it is. And at that stage, you can afford to go on holidays, you can send your kids to school, you can afford a very nice car, you can start saving for yourselves. And we will have 168 million people who will earn somewhere between $8,500 to $40,000 a year. Now, households are not the same thing. A household in the UK and a household in Netherlands is about 2.5 people. A household in India is about 5 people. But just use that as a currency. 8 years from now, depending on who you listen to, India will have an economy the size of the UK and have an economy the size of 2.5 Indonesias. And 2.5 Indonesias is basically when you start saving, when you start buying cars, when you start having high-end phones. And that's actually the economy that we're talking about. So while we've gone through a really rough 3 years, what I think is really interesting is that we will have pretty much the fastest addition to GDP growth. And if you're looking at customers, whatever it is, whether it's life insurance, whether it's mutual funds, whether it's cars, whether it's clothes and ready to going out, this is what's going to drive your business. And I think that's the opportunity we're talking about right now, which is we are lucky enough to be in the fastest growing part of the economy in the world for the next 5 to 7 years. And depending on what you're selling to, depending on who you're selling to, we will either have the size of a UK market or we'll have the size of 2.5 Indonesias. I think that's going to be an interesting conversation to think about. And that's really what it means. Unfortunately, today we still have a large number of people who are not in the consuming classes. And the question becomes, how do you build a social safety net for them? How do you empower them to grow even faster? But fundamentally, that's the question. Make sense? Any questions on that? So you have this change happening over the next 5 years. More than one. Next, I'm going to be next. Sorry. And then you have the launch of 5G, which is starting, I would say, probably the next 4 to 6 weeks. Okay. And and there's new things that I was talking about it. Metaverse, direct-to-consumer brands, privacy and consumer trust. These are all things that we're kind of imagine right now. And the question becomes, the amount of data that's being created, the amount of insights being created today in 3 months equals what we used to create in a year 10 years ago. And the amount of insights that is needed means that you need a specialist partner like, I would say Ram, but I would also say DDB Mudra, okay, to help you figure this out, because that's the benefit of having a partner like that. And if you think about all the changes, this is just the last 12 months, Internet of Things, digitization of business, the demise of cookies, whether it happens now, whether it happens a year from now or 24, the direction is very clear. Digital is going to get faster. People are going to care about privacy and trust. And brands are going to be created that serve depending who you think about, the Indonesians in India or the UK or the Netherlands in India that we are today. And we're moving away from being a purely person-to-person phenomenon to being business and a things phenomenon, where you'll be able to track devices, you'll be able to track, machines, and machines will make decisions on their own that, when you need your air purifier to be worked. And that insight is pretty interesting. Which is where, for example, Geo came from. I can talk a bit about where we came from. It's not meant to be a sales pitch, but forgive me. Like I said, we're all salespeople at heart. Next. I think this is the change that we talk about. This whole way of businesses that we think about was built upon 4G platforms. And we talk about this a lot, which is how do we disrupt the market? And I think one of the reasons I am here is because we created a digital platform that rightly or wrongly has created a whole network of digital businesses. And I think about how the world has changed. Imagine trying to work from home in 2015. Imagine trying to do a Zoom call in 2015. I actually, forget anything else. I actually tried to do it because I worked for an Israeli company at the time, and they would do video conference calls. And I used to go, and the biggest data pack that you could buy was a 3 GB a month data pack. And I would buy 9 of these SIM cards, and I would literally swap them out once every 2 days. And that's how I got to the month. And India at that point was one of the most expensive internet destinations in the world, and now one of the slowest, and now we're one of the fastest. And we talk about it, and I talk about another organization work for, which is Hotstar. We're very clear that we created value because we built on the geo infrastructure, and going from 1 or 2 unicorns a year to in 2021, 41. And you may argue whether they're worth X or worth Y, but fundamentally they created value and they created businesses. I think that's important to think about, which is when you go from a speed of a few hundred megabytes per second to potentially 5 gigabytes per second, what are new businesses you can think about? What are new concepts you can think about? And when you can scale it up at that level, it's pretty interesting. I'm not going to do the whole thing, but I'm just going to jump around how some of the dots we are in. I was talking to some gentlemen here today, and I just pointed out that Geo is lucky because we're in a position to see 50% of all 4G users in India. We're only a 4G network, and we see them for 7 hours a day. And we get a sense of what they do, what they like, what they don't like, where they go. And we're in a very privileged position that 450 million people trust us and have a billing relationship with us. That's a very powerful position to be in. And we talk a lot about that, but we think it's a classic thing. But 450 million people who work with you and pay you is not a small kind of area. And that's where we think we can help with use of paradigms and advertising. Today we look at our business and say, okay, we connect 450 million people to the internet. We give content to almost 400 million across the network, and obviously we bought IPL. Okay. And we also are India's largest commerce platform. 160 million people shop with us every year. It's a public figure, so we can say so. Across a wide variety. Whether it's FMCG, whether it's banana stores, whether it's fashion, whether it's high-end brands. We're very clearly building for India, and we're very clearly succeeding in India. I think we think that we can help marketers connect. I'm actually not going to go through a lot of these conversations. I'm just going to point out some of these numbers in terms of scale. But we're seeing some interesting examples. I mean, we're now, from launch, JioFiber is India's largest ISP. We connect almost 5 million households. And, we were ahead of MTN, I think, earlier on this year. We're now giving opportunities for people to reach and connect to those, users via connected TV. The question becomes, we started becoming a distribution partner for a lot of content partners. And then obviously our investments in content will only grow. Okay. We've been working and building our expertise in advertising. Actually, we've been running cricket and live cricket across our platforms for quite a few years now. almost a couple of years as we've done our partnerships. And then over the next few years, as we go into sports, and this is an example, as people get richer, they can invest more in sports. They can fulfill themselves in ways that, it wasn't available to us when we were young. So whether it's football, whether it's cricket, whether it's, other sports, this is going to be an interesting place for us. The question becomes, how does this work and how will it change? Okay. But this is the insights we're able to figure out. We know that 84.21 million people deterministically have an EMI. The last 30 days, 8.83 million people took an online test. 12.7 million people in the last 1 year or 2 years have bought a mutual fund. 13.47 million people have ordered fast food. There are 56.64 million online shoppers in India across our network. If you break it down in terms of groceries, I think that would take us to 23 million. And 111 million people use a digital wallet. I mean, these are all interesting insights, but the whole point is that it's a combination of multiple signals, a combination of real users. It's going to be really interesting to see when 5G comes up and we expand our network across other publishers, what the other opportunity is. And the examples we talked about, we know whether somebody, and this is where it becomes interesting, we start mixing the online and offline information together. So as we start thinking about, for example, store sales, this is a store sale that we have, these are various Ganana stores. This is L'Oreal makeup and L'Oreal products. We're able to see product shares by stores and how different they are at the category level. We know that, for example, up numbers up, L'Oreal sold in the time that we were looking at 154 units of hair care, but the overall hair care category was 2,755. But in makeup, they sold 18 or 50%. As you start thinking about inputs and outputs, it becomes more and more less around clicks and downloads to actual is it impacting sales. And I think this is where I had a lucky enough chance to look at the Almanac. This is where it starts giving you the tools to start building these kind of insights. My personal belief is that we're making a move away from digital-only metrics to offline metrics, to business metrics. And we're making a move away from platforms that are built on digital metrics to platforms that can give you the full insight all the way through. We started looking at some of this data that we looked at. And we started looking at, just because me and most people know that I'm an avid drinker of Diet Coke or Diet Cokers. Okay, we started looking at, what do people order Cokes do? What else do they buy? Fundamentally, 15,000 people bought a Coke SKU, were actually 38,000 people in this group of like 300 stores. There's a pilot around for the drinks category. The overlap between people who buy processed foods is 91%. That makes a lot of sense, right? If I buy packaged Coke, I'm more likely to buy other packaged goods. But then all of a sudden you start putting it together. People who buy snacks and namkeens buy them together. People who buy chocolates and candies. But the correlation between breakfast cereals and Cokes, not that interesting. This is based on basket level data. This becomes interesting. The location between beauty and hygiene, between foods and drinks, all the way through. And then you can also think about the intensity of the drink. So your snacks and branded food categories, the average number of units bought by consumer over 6 months was 20. But for people who buy baby care, it's 2. You can build a very rich profile of who your user is. I actually was curious about this, so I actually went and said, what's the deepest level of data we can look at? This is actually cheese. Whether it's sliced, cubed, block, or spread. Actually, we're able to see what the kind of market share our stores are. Still a very much offline and online in the world. 90% of products are bought offline, especially the FMCG category. So we start thinking about this. Start thinking about what just bring it together. You start thinking about people who buy mutual funds, who also have kids in online classes, who also visit the store, who also go to colleges, who also buy block cream cheese versus sliced cheese. Then we start thinking about the new world in which you're not just a consumer, you're also a fact that you're also a business. We have Kirana orders who order food from us. We deliver more than 8,500 crores worth of GDP. Okay, 8,500 crores worth of goods to Kiranas all around India. It's obviously very FMCG heavy in the world, but we can extend to other examples. This is how people are ordering right now. This is a Kirana app, it orders, people order food, and instead of ordering one carton of milk, they order a crate of it. Now you're suddenly understanding that, you know, this gentleman that, or this person that he was ordering is not only a consumer with a certain demographic, she is also somebody who runs a store. She's also something different. And that is an interesting view of the world. And, you know, we did some campaigns, we figured out actually, you know, merchants who ordered from that from that app. Okay. We did a campaign, we reached what, 3 lakh unique merchants, 80 million impressions. 1 in 8 merchants who click the banner order within 24 hours. 1 in 6 merchants ordered within 3 days. And 50% of the merchants had either bought for the first time ever or a gap off after 90 days. And I think what I'm not trying to talk about is this, but this is what we're able to see with our insights. As you start tying it together, it becomes pretty insightful what you can do. Your user base is no longer user base. You have actually people who build cohorts of million plus cohorts just to go deep. Okay. And we're talking about cricket. So we had to build the power of digital in cricket within scale, targeting, and transparency. So we've also built programmatic to this because frankly, we talk a lot about analytics and, you know, I need data is a new world, people say those things. But fundamentally, it's about privacy, it's about trust. You know, we don't let our users, our partners' data be traded. So we let it be leveraged because we think good ads make sense. We've got a new programmatic platform. We've helped people build their CRM with Mondelez. They've built all the 1 crore users as part of their CRM. Okay, they come in, they opt in. And the value that's being created there. I'm actually just putting it here, but fundamentally that's what I really wanted to talk about, which is we are in an interesting place. We have in 5 years' time, maybe 5 to 8 years' time, depending on who you speak to. We will be economy the size, I think, of probably most of Europe. Okay. We will have interesting problems in the sense that we will also have a fairly wealthy upper class, but we need to solve for still a fairly significant audience that requires help. I really believe that digital, especially the way that we are building it in India, where it reaches everybody, is going to be a game changer in terms of how we solve it. And that digital platform we built upon insights and users. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been an interesting start, but I hope that you remember that any insights that you think are helpful for you, do share it with the world outside. We are living in the digital world, so just a reminder that if you're tweeting or sharing it, please don't forget to use the hashtag #BWDDB Almanac. We'd love to be part of that conversation. Moving forward with its raging success by far, digital has created and broken many records. Global economic growth has been boosted by the digital transition, and it is opening its doors for new businesses to thrive and cater to the customers' needs. Our next session talks about everything digital. For this session, we have with us Mr. Anil Singh, Managing Director, Program International, Mr. Samir Narkar, Founder and Chief Product Architect, Connect Insights, Ankit Prasad, Founder and CEO, Bobble AI, Shetanshu Dikshit, Lead Digital Communications for Nordicard India, Chirag Bhatia, Senior Vice President, Account Management, DDB Mudra Group, Nupur Sharma, Senior Partner, Digital Strategy, DDB Mudra Group. While the setup is on, let me also inform you, Carlton Martian, President CMO, Kotak Mahindra, was supposed to join us, but he's just informed us right before the event that his son has got COVID, so do keep him in your prayers. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here with us for that reason. We also have moderating this session, Mr. Preetham Venki, President, 22 Feet Tribal Worldwide and Chief Digital Officer, DDB Mudra Group, joining us for this session. I hope the setup is ready. So ladies and gentlemen, I'd like all of you to please welcome our speakers, panelists, and moderator for the session. A very warm welcome to you all. Can we bring the mics, please?
All right. Go on.
Very warm welcome and over to you.
Thank you so much. Once again, good evening to everyone who managed to break the reins this evening. We've got a very splendid panel and a very, very interesting discussion just before this panel sat down. And I have to say that it's going to be as free-flowing as it's supposed to be. Because the topic is not just wide, but complex. And the intent is for us to try and unlock some of the complexity. So again, doing digital right. And it can mean a lot of things, but the way we want to focus this discussion is around how the infrastructure around getting digital and its growth right has essentially 4 specific layers. You've got enablers. Enablers are a simple thing like the India government stack, whether it is UPI or ONDC or Aadhaar, what have you. The second thing is obviously the infrastructure, a move from 4G to 5G specifically. And third is, of course, platforms. How is metaverse and gaming going to shape the future? Web3 as an ecosystem. And of course, lastly, the content experiences. Those are the endpoints that typically users, whether it's us or anybody else out there who actually experiences digital in its full form through content experiences. So with that, the first thing we could do is just start with a very interesting question, and we will go around all of the panelists for their comments, is if you were to look at the Indian digital economy as a corporation or as a company, do you think you would invest in it as a growth stock or as a value stock? And so just to simplify the matters, a growth stock is when you have a PE which is greater than 15, sometimes even 4,500, what have you. And if it's a value stock, then it's typically the PE ratios hovers around 15. So if you were to look at the Indian digital economy as a corporation, where do you see the next 5, 10, 15, 25, 30 years lying? Would you invest in it as a growth company or as a value stock? Let's go around from the other end.
So, thank you first of all for having me. My name is Shitanshu. Considering how digital is growing, I think the entire phenomenon of Web 3.0 as well, with technology taking a center stage, it's going to be the growth space in which one would look into. Number one is the reasons being many. Number one being the longevity. I think today, with the entire digitalization happening across organizations, not just from the marketing window, I think with COVID happening, we saw a tremendous amount of process digitalization also happening, right? From the IT sector to also the software spaces as well. So I do see, number one, a strong longevity happening in the organizations, and with the entire phenomenon of technology taking the center stage, it surely would be the growth space in which one would look into.
Thank you.
Thanks, Venki, for bringing it down. First of all, I would like to congratulate all of us for celebrating the 75th India's Independence Day yesterday. And since we have entered into that Amrit Kaal, so to say, and for those reasons, I think India's digital economy is going to be the most precious stock that you can ever buy. And we are very fortunate to be at the right time, at the right place, to have got the opportunity to invest into this evolution, this revolution.
I like that word revolution, interesting.
Hi everybody. So if I had to answer a question and looking at the digital economy right now, the stage we're at, I think I would also pick growth stock because of course after the pandemic, the growth at which people are adapting to different technologies, whether it's e-commerce, it's chatbots, I would definitely say growth.
Good evening, Anil Singh is my name. This is a tough question. I'm a sports promoter, so I look at things in a very different lens. For me, sport is passion and connect. So how I can fuel either, whether it's passion or connect, the passion drives me from a digital lens. So to answer your question, Wendy, I would say, of course it's going to grow. But I would like to have a little bit of checks and balances. We can also look at it from a value stock point of view, rather than just one bet. So I think it's going to be a bit of both, but it must serve your purpose. That's, I think it's a little bit of a different challenge.
Very interesting question, Wendy. Had you asked me this question when I started my career in digital back in 2008, probably my answer would have been different. But today, I also somewhere believe that nothing grows which doesn't create value. So today, with the infrastructure points that you mentioned and the ecosystem going, today we are at 700 million Indians online. In 3 years' time, rather 2.5 years' time, it's going to be about 900 million Indians online. With this kind of an infrastructure and a playground, who wouldn't bet it to be a growth stock?
So yesterday I was supposed to give a speech in my building, to encourage the young generation of India. And I was telling that, see, India is the future. That, when we graduated, most of my friends went to US, went to UK. But I see today with all the entire startup culture that we have and the exciting times that we live in India, India is the place to be. I mean, I don't see today's generation pursuing the dreams of going abroad and learning and earning there, but they see that India is the place. So India is definitely a good start. We are very optimistic about the growth story of India. And in the past few years have been very exciting with all the initiatives that have been taken by the government as well as the work that has been done by fellow Indians. So next 5 to 6 years, maybe a decade belongs to me.
Well, thanks, Amir. And maybe since you have the microphone, we'll go the other way around this time. As we get things right, and I think there's a unanimous agreement that it is going to be a growth stock to a large extent, there are some sites which can be a little tricky. So let's look at attention span. At one end, you've got a generation which has an attention span to binge watch a Netflix series, so it's about 15 hours. And at the same time, you've got a very different generation who has an attention span that's less than 15 seconds. So how do you get digital right from an attention standpoint for brands, especially when attention span is reducing? It will be 15 seconds now, and I can assure you that in the next few years, it may be down to about 7.5 seconds, and it will continue to lower. So how do you get digital right for brands when attention span is ever shrinking?
So, I mean, today's challenge is really focus. If you see your kids working on a particular project, they every 1 minute they'll touch mobile phone. So the focus is the real problem. And when it comes to brands to make people want to see your stuff, it's really difficult. In fact, one other day, I was scrolling through my meeting, and there was one story about one ad that was done by one person. Okay, and then similar ad which was done by a certain brand. And the discussion point was which one is better. The point is, in fact, I have forgotten the other brand who has done the similar ad. I still remember one person after 37 years. So it's definitely a challenge because we, as marketing agencies, create something really beautiful, and there's a lot of logic to it. But what happens is the next day, people forget. So that is a challenge that we are going to have going forward. So definitely, focus is the problem.
So 15 seconds is a very long time. The average time people spend on one piece of content on any social platform is about 1.7 seconds. So that's the opportunity time that a brand has to make it a break. So while having said that, we always follow a framework of 70-20-10. 70% has to be extremely short form content, and brands have to figure out ways and means of telling their story in as short a time as possible. 20% is laid back content, and that 10% is where the 15-hour binge watching kind of happens.
So I'm just going to hold you to it. What can you do in 1.7 seconds if that's 70%? I really want to know, other than flashing the logo.
So 1.7 seconds is the time that you have the opportunity to grab attention. But if you have that attention, then you can hold that person for as long. So that's the time where you kind of really entice that viewer or that person to stick on to your content. And once he's linked on to your content, then binge watching can happen forever.
Any other thoughts?
I have a very radical thoughts. But it's not that. For me, it's a bit different. I think we get it to that. Anything we do, and I'm going to use the sport level, that's where I can come from to answer these questions from a certain lens, right? And take a look at participative sport for a minute. So, for example, today, program has 6 races, which are the biggest front-facing races to the world. Why did we get into it? We got into it for one simple point of view. What turned me on when I was standing in London as a guest of the London Marathon was there were 55,000 people there with 55,000 stories, right? Life is about stories. Like I'm not here to cater life to 1.7 milliseconds of trying to justify that. Because that's what my intent is. I'm in the wrong world. And neither should brands look at it that way. Are we going to cater to that kind of a fundamental, or are we going to use digital to create a bridge? To be able to get that person on the bridge, whichever way they like, whatever they want to experience on the bridge, and then it reaches to the point where you want them to come. So to me, it's a facilitation. It's not I'm not here, and I don't think I ever will be, to cater to the world and to measure it in seconds, because you don't tell stories that way. Stories are told from a passionate lens. It's told from a lens of belief, conviction, and that's what, if you really want to amount it to sport. So, or anything in that matter. So I think digital needs to be, it's a vehicle. It's a vehicle that allows you at your own time to curate, and we should look at it that way. It's not to be able to meet timelines or second deadlines and, oh my God, he would have lost. I don't give a rat's ass if he loses it, forgive my French. I don't care, because I'm not here to convey that message. I'm here to invoke, connect, to build passion, and show a lifestyle that he wants to do. So if we are going to redefine how stories need to be told or what they need to mean, then I just think that all of us are doing a disservice to that word, if I may put it on that side. And for me, it's fabulous, because, as I said, the sports promoter's job is to keep building bridges so people travel with the end goal. And what greater enabler could technology deliver than the world of digital? Because it allows us to curate, so I can reach you, I can invoke you, I can get you excited. But my job is to make sure that when you're in, then I give you the whole 9 yards, slowly and surely. Whether it's a film, whether it's music, whether it's a story, hear it, feel it, understand it, experience it. And for me, the other thing about digital is can I go to that sort of way? Can I create the same experience I create on ground? And how close can I get to that? How can I make it more inclusive? So that's the lens for us. I'm not here to mesh it with an X time framework, and so be it. But I won't achieve what I want to achieve. I won't build, or I can't change what I want to change, or I can't create what I want to create if I don't have a normal lens. I don't succumb to that.
So I think brands definitely cannot run away from the fact that the attention spans today are very, very low. So I have an example to quote. Last weekend I got to watch a movie, and the titles were coming in, and I just couldn't wait to press the skip. because that's the generation that we live in, right?
They should introduce that in movie also.
Yeah, you should. So, that's when I realized that while storytelling is very important, and of course, long formats work, it's also very important for brands to realize that short form content works. So whether it's your Instagram reels, whether it's some of the new Indian trends that have come up, it's very, very important for brands to also cater to that format, find interesting ways in how you can leverage that additionally to your long format.
I think it doesn't matter how long or what matters more is how long is it going to last in the minds of the receiver at that time. And at Formal, we continue to invest in the shortest and most impactful formats of content. You mentioned about 1.7 seconds. You mentioned what can it be? And we feel that all the conversational content it should be emojis. Yeah. Sure. So pick up any conversational content, be it emojis, stickers, GIFs, memes, right? If I tell here, dekh rahe na, sir kya bol rahe the, everybody will relate to it, right? That is the impact of meme. It's just a phrase, just one simple graphic, but the impact and the emotion that it carries, the connect is able to build is humongous, right? I think we need to continue to invest into those formats of content which are momentarily, and I completely resonate with while even when I'm watching a movie, I keep checking my WhatsApp messages, right? And the shortest way I respond to them is by just sending an emoji, right? I don't even care, what it does. I just send thumbs up. That's it. So so that's what our bet is on conversational formats of content, the shortest format of content, which has a wow effect, a long lasting effect.
Emojis speak louder than words. Yeah, that's perfectly bang on. But I think have a different viewpoint. I think while content in any format is the king, that's always we keep on saying. I think the first party data, the data of your own stakeholders. I think with the world getting cookieless, as we all know, I think first party data is going to be the king. How do you make sure that a creative, say for example, I'm a music fan, right? So if a creative which comes on the screen, if that creative has a music relevance, definitely it will appeal to me. If something in sports works well for someone, sports will work well for that individual. Today, organizations are wasting a lot of money with the generic ads. In fact, one of the research says that 79% of the people today on Instagram find the ads being boring and generic because they're not being personalized. So I think personalization is going to be the key. Customization is going to be the key. Emojis is going to be the way forward because people speak less, but people want to speak more, right? And 1.7 seconds, while the art of storytelling is going to be a big challenge, completely agree. How will we narrate a story in 10 seconds or 15 seconds? But frankly, as a creative individual, I do feel that where there is a challenge, there is an opportunity. And hence, for the entire advertising, for the entire creative fraternity, how do we respect the platforms? How do we make sure that a skip ad, which is a 6-seconder on YouTube, is a 6-seconder skip ad made for the platform? Today, organizations, most of us, as organizations, employees, what we normally do is we make an ad. These are the things we used to do yesterday. We used to make an ad, slice and dice that ad, make it as a 6-seconder after the production team has created the film. This is an utter disbelief, frankly, because you're not being true to the platform. YouTube will work differently, Twitter will work differently, Instagram will work differently, and the attention span is going to reduce. It's going to come down to milliseconds and microseconds as we move ahead for the generations. So, two things as a key takeaway: respect to the platform, and you get personalized, get customized, so that the relevance increases.
Let's ask is it something that we are looking to sort of make that impact, right? And we say for the advertiser or whatever. I think this, first of all, there are two sides of it. One is advertising, one is sponsorship. For me, advertising is the right to choose. Sponsorship is to ensure that that choice is you. So it's a very different lens, right? Number one. So my question is, do I want as a sponsor, am I looking for branding? And therefore branding doesn't have a story to tell me, does it sort of invoke whatever I sort of get out of that messaging, and does it lead me to buy? Or does it really sort of define my world which I operate, which I'm excited about? Like in sport, for example. So the question is, if it is a sponsorship and you then work into the digital medium, are you truly looking to play the role of an advertiser when you should be a sponsor? So should you be cutting it to trying to make that impact, or should that impact truly not be relevant? Because your brand to the world that you operate in will always be relevant if you're serious about it. You could become flaky the other way around from a point of view. And are we to try and make these impacts at 1.7 or 10? Is that truly the way forward for brands? It needs to be thought through. And finally, if I may, there's a story to tell which is inspiration or whatever that you feel, it's got passion, it's got reality, it's built on whatever. That's why it's called the story. Do we really want to massacre that story by finding a 15 times shorter version for it? Do we get that same impact that comes out of it? So, I mean, there is a whole new way to look at it. Or do we need to sort of play that game? And how can I get myself known within that second? I don't know. And I'm dead against that, personally. If the story needs time to be told, then let it be told. And if he's WhatsApping during a film, why is he at the film? How can it be so important? How can that WhatsApp emoji be so important that he can't wait? It can't be. And is that what we are trying to inculcate as a question we need to ask? Sorry.
David, does somebody want to respond to some of those? Because they're pretty interesting, by the way. I mean, I think to each one their own.
Even for my age group, probably patience is still a virtue. But at the end of the day, whether it's sponsorship, whether it's advertising, is it for the brand? It's for the consumer. And if the consumer behavior is changing, the consumer is getting impatient. I'm just saying.
We need to look at that. I think it's not. I think it's needed at this thing. I'm just saying. On certain levels, and I don't need it for every single thing is the same. Everything applies the same. The question is, on a certain point, when you want to invoke passion, when you want to tell a story, are we really doing justice to humanity or to people by trying to find 5 short corners how to tell that story? Because that story was important because it was built on whatever it was built on. There is no shortcut to that story. So are we facilitating this? That's my question. I agree with you, and that's something you have to look at. But is that the world we want to operate in? Is that how it is? That we are always, because people are going to be flippant, but we are the ones who are making them flippant.
It's not about patience or impatience, I think. And it's not about whether the message can be conveyed through a longer format or shorter format. मुझे याद है बचपन में पापा आँख दिखा देते थे तो मैसेज कन्वे हो जाता है नहीं करना है, right? Even expression, if a simple expression can convey the message, why do you even need a story? Why do you need a 30-second story? And that's what I meant by responding with an emoji instead of typing the whole message out.
Sure, but that's not really what we're talking about. It's a brand. It's not an emoji yet. But anyway, I think we all understand what we're doing.
But that's interesting because you've got 2 sides of the spectrum, and the 2 sides of the spectrum are trying to meet, in a very lopsided, anti-circular way.
This boils down to what exactly Sudhanshu said is personalization is the key. You might like long form, I might like short form. So it's the power of data, whether it's first party, second party, third party, doesn't matter. But I deliver what the other person wants. And that's what appeals.
And so just to add, I think story today has, you can't define a story by a length, and I completely agree. Story clear, you need characters, you need drama, you need conflicts, you need all those elements. Today, if you look at some of the best stories, and humans, as humans, we are fascinated by stories. Everyone will have a personal story to narrate. Stories fascinate humans, data doesn't. But frankly, you need to make sure that you're using that data personalizing it, as I said, because everyone has their own whims and fancies on digital. It's an uncontrolled space. You have to make sure that you use those data cohorts. And today organizations are making sure that they have repository of data and make golden records of consumers. Because you can slice and dice. That's the power of digital. Frankly, if you look at the pro side of it, you can slice the dice of data. Gone are the days when we used to say demographically, I will put up this ad targeting males 25 plus, ho gaya. Today you can target people who follow X kind of musician to X kind of a genre and just break it down. Yeah, you can just slice it, the finest of results. And what you get, by the way, just to kind of give on the performance part of it. I was fortunate enough to be a part of ITC before, and we realized that the first party data, which is the data of your own consumers, your own trade people, your own sales people, your own activation team. If you use that data cohort rather than using the available platform to advertise, 2.3x times that data appeals to that individual better, performance-wise, 2.3 times. Now, if you have a story which is killer, a drama which is magnificent, then you imagine how much will it appeal to me as a music guy, vis-a-vis a sports guy, if that story has different cuts and layers. That is the beauty of digital today. And that, I think, will solve the entire problem of attention span. Because 1.7 seconds mein aap brand logo hi dikha sakte ho. And people are not fascinated by logo, right? You need a story, as I told, like again, it's the loop again. You need to have the hook. And I think the hook is the personalization, which is the key.
You know, today brands are looking at me.
This is a very interesting panel.
But today brands
Maybe
are looking
continues. I know that we're trying to keep you away from
but I've been sitting in front of brands, talking about strategies, blah, blah, blah. The three things I keep getting back, whichever way you want to say it, empathy, community, and wellness, right, are exactly the mantra that is leading corporate global forward. Whether it's they really mean it, whether it's what we call, whether you want to call it sports washing or emotional washing, it doesn't matter. But they want to either have one of those three or all three to be at least seen from that lens. That's what the pandemic has taught them. Hey, incorporate these three things, which is absurd. But the point is, how do you incorporate as a brand empathy, wellness, and community with these kind of thought processes that, hey, let's try to appeal to you in the next 3 seconds or 5 seconds. How do you build that? It's not possible. First one is for you to take it on makes it look a little dicey in any case, but then to try and communicate and make it your speak in that fashion, I think is shameful. So that's the question is, those are the realities on ground. Now, if you want to convert that and make that into this kind of an approach, so sure, there are things that require abbreviation. But to me, the greatness of digital, why it's a blessing for people like us, it's a phenomenon. It helps that journey of that bridge be curated, be convenient, be interesting, and you just need to hook in with that. Once they are hooked, stop abbreviating every story that follows. That's absurd. You understand? So bring it in. I mean, sure. Because finally it's passion and connect, whichever way you skill that guy. But that's what we can hook digital for, not to make it your way of life.
Got it. Thanks, Anil. Seems like we're taking up a lot of time, but I do have one last question, keeping time in view. In each of your respective industries, in the next 5 years, what do you think there's one thing that's going to remain constant in digital? And what's the one thing that's going to radically shift or change? Okay, in your respective industries, what's the one thing that's going to remain constant when it comes to being on digital? And what do you think is going to radically change or shift? You want to go ahead, Samir?
What is going to stay is definitely constant. I mean, the mediums can change. Of course, we are now getting into the activities where 8 hours to be good. That's an exciting thing. If you look back 30 years and tell people that by 2020, the stage where you wouldn't have believed. I think next 10, 15 years, of course, metaverse is going to be the art of storytelling would obviously be there, but the way it would be told would be different. We might have this kind of meeting virtual sitting at home. I mean, we saw in pandemic that if this was a virtual meeting, it didn't make any sense. You know? Again, it didn't give that kind of impact, but maybe metaverse could give that kind of impact. So the platforms will change, but the art of storytelling will always.
So, being a digital native, I would say the only constant in digital really changed. Because right from 2008, the only thing that I've seen constantly in digital is the change that is happening. New technologies coming up, way to reach out to consumers changing from spray and pray roadblocks to n is equal to 1 data centric approach we've come a long way. And from here, it's extremely tough to predict what will happen. Like a lot of us back in 90s said internet is a fad. Today, a lot of us discuss that metaverse probably is a fad, but 10 years down the line, or people who are still going to school, when they grow up in our age, ask them, probably they will be talking the same language, saying that, okay, those people said metaverse was bad. So the only constant in the world of digital really changed.
It's a nice cop-out answer, but anyway, we'll take that.
So I think sport is truly blessed to have this world of technology come on to our world and to be incorporated. But only if you treat it the way it should be treated, not make it the be-all and end-all, and that's the world of sport today. It's nothing. It's only a hook. It allows, what I love about digital, especially from the world that we operate in, it's inclusive. And that to me is phenomenal. Because not only can I make it inclusive, that they are part of what we are doing. Today, the Tata Mumbai Marathon can only accommodate 55,000 people at the start line, right? But we just launched the Tata Mumbai Marathon 3 days ago. The CM launched it himself. And all the entries we've received, 25% of it, I could have 500,000 people entering the Tata Mumbai Marathon. If I could allow it, I'd love it. But we can't because the streets are as big as they are. But the point of 25% of all the entries are to run it virtually. Because yes, we do give that from the hub point of view, where they can be anywhere in the world and run. That's a fabulous story that I want to be able to create the passion, the magic of what happens on ground, to be able for them, somebody sitting in London or Paris or New York, to be moved, to feel this part of that. And for me, that's fabulous, one side. And I can also sort of feed him things that, but not because I want to abbreviate the world of sport. I wanted to enter the world of sport through an abbreviated methodology or a curated methodology, bring him on, make him inclusive, give the best experience I can possibly offer. But hey, sport is sport. Like they say, if it ain't live, it ain't sport. That's what it is. You're not connected to sport because I watched a clip from an IPL or whatever. That's not sport. That's your own hedonism, if I may put it that way. So let's be clear and real as to what we are trying to do with it. It's an enabler, a facilitator for my lens. And I'm talking about from that. I'm not talking about what it does for health or wellness or community and people and safety. But let's truly appreciate what it is for, use it, but it's not an alternate. It's a God-given enabler that makes us be able to create passion and correct much easier than we could ever in our lives.
So I think everything else will change, will keep changing, whether it's your mediums, your platforms, your technology, your video length, everything will change. One thing that will never change is keeping up with growth at the next level. So we will try and get better at how you can find the passion points, how you can really find the pain point of the consumer, find the solution. So I think that is something that will stay and hopefully will get better at. But apart from that, I think everything else is.
It's not very diplomatic. Someone said that humans are social animals. I always say humans are conversational animals. Because
this
COVID
panel
is proven, right?
this panel is the most ripe example of it.
COVID is proven. People hesitate to now touch each other. People don't want to be in a gathering, a large gathering. Right? People don't want to come on a physical, social gathering. And that is why that myth that humans are social animals has been broken. But people are still conversing. They cannot stop conversing. Be it virtual, be it physical, wherever they are still conversing. Right? So I think conversations are here to stay for a long time. Everything else around it will evolve and evolve faster than what we can imagine. Conversational content, conversational commerce, conversational insights, first party conversational data and insights, and so on. There are so many things which are going to evolve around conversation. That's what we believe.
Thanks.
So what will remain the same? I think it's like cricket. The pitch, the boundary, everything is going to remain the same. The rules of the game are going to remain the same. The format may change. So frankly, I think the rules of marketing are still the same. We must respect marketing for a reason. While digital is there, what I personally feel is going to evolve, and that's maybe most of the people are going to kill me, but I think it's getting much more complex. The world is becoming much more jargonized, if I may say. I think simplicity would be missing. I think we need to keep it simple. Simple bhashan mein agar bolte hain to that essence of simplicity is something which will always be key. I think that simplicity is becoming much more complex with this entire Web 3.0 technology taking the center stage. I think that's the challenge I would look at. What is also going to change is the perspective of organizations. I think a lot of organizations from perspective of consumer goods, from a standpoint of durables, from Alcobev, I think a lot of organizations would be looking to create in-house capabilities. And I think in the next 5 years, a lot of younger talents are going to come to the forefront, especially the college-going students. I see a lot of talent at recruits from at younger age built into digital. I think because they are the real future. In fact, frankly, if you ask all of us, I think the way things are speeding up, I'm sure we are also trying to keep up with pace, but it's moving at a rapid pace. So I think in-house capability is going to increase and specialized roles are going to be created. So if you look at a person in the next 5 years, maybe he's a meta expert would come into picture, or someone sports digital fanatic. So there are going to be roles created for specific industries, specific cuts, specific subsections. So I think that's the future. It's commendable because what will create it will create economy for the country, where it will create employment for the younger talents as well. So I think that's how the things would be heading into this.
Well, that just supports the initial supposition, right? Which is the digital media economy would be a growth stock.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just to add to it, I read it somewhere, CMO would become chief meta officer.
Well, surely Mark Zuckerberg would like it that way. But I mean, I personally couldn't be more blessed with a better panel than this. It is the most healthiest debate that we've ever seen. And I'm sure some of it will also continue again inside. But thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for the inputs. Really appreciate it.
We can take a couple of them, yes.
I wasn't so sure about if we had time for Q&A, but we do surely have time for a few questions. Can we pass the microphone along, please? Do let us know if you want to specifically, address that question to an individual, or would it be the entire panel?
Hello. Yes. It's really, I got a lot of knowledge. I'm an IoT innovator and entrepreneurs. And we are launching completely new out-of-the-box product, digital products, around 75 lakh screen in next 1 year of time. And we approached the Amul, one of the brand, and we like that, and they have almost confirmed order about the 1 lakh screen, which has a smart camera, sensors, a lot of things inside of there. So my question whether this industry is ready to invest money on digital infrastructure. Example, we go to other brand, Asian Paints, L&D, Ultratech, lot of things are, and I meet with the ministry also. So they told if Amul cannot invest, then DDB also can invest money too, because now government vision about digital India. So I would know from industry whether industry is ready to invest money on digital infrastructure. It's a kind of large project is there. This is my own to learn from the inside from you.
Got it. Was that question to a specific panelist or was it to anyone?
From the,
got it. Anybody wants to take that?
Like any big building. So many investors take up blocks, flags. So kind of you are part of industry, whether you invest money to the things.
Go ahead, it's got lots of money to give.
No, yeah. It is a phase one, sir. Phase one, we are doing a 75 lakhs, but future is like market is accepted, it's large. And we want to much larger production because once we produce a large, then the cost will be reduced. So we want to get participation more and more people.
Ankit, you want to take that?
Undoubtedly, IoT is the thing. But having said that, my thesis is that an IoT which would bring brands to the consumers' lives, to their places where they reside, to the places where they work, to their everyday lives, is going to be bigger than or easier and more impactful, effective than expecting consumers to come out of their comfort zone on the streets and look at an IoT screen out there. And so I believe the thesis, an ideal thesis for growth should be to bring brands inside the daily lives of consumers rather than bringing consumers to outside.
Anyone else in the panel wants to take that question?
So, IoT or digital, sky's the limit today. Only the digital ads market is upwards of 25,000 crores. And as I call it, the future of ease economy. If you're addressing that, then no one will stop.
Thank you. Do we have any other question? Yes, we'll pass on the mic, please. Can we raise the hand, please?
Good evening. So I have a question. We know that a consumer has attention span of a goldfish. So is there any mantra that as a marketer should follow while using the digital medium?
Well, you just stroked the dragon again. Quite a bit of a wide debate on that. But anybody else who wants to quickly summarize and take that specifically?
The mantra is to move away from traditional media, adopt the new formats of media. You have opened a Pandora box anyway, so.
You mean to move away completely? I said it's just one mantra that can use.
No, so I think we had a discussion. I think the key takeaway was respect the platforms. Okay. Second thing is get personalized. Something which appeals to a sports guy, music guy, keep it very customized and use technology to the fullest of advantage. If you look at the recent one, I'm sure everyone would have, it's not just a Cadbury ad, brilliantly done. They created almost 1,000 cuts of the same ad, but made it very relevant. So I think you'll reach out, but you have to be and you have to be respectful to the platforms which you are kind of advertising on. Because normally what we do as advertising individuals is we push out the same content across. And we are not being respectful to the platforms. So be respectful to the platforms. I'm sure the platform will give back to you in terms of results.
I think my mantra is stay true and stay real. Don't get caught up in this world that is.
That's the content. Yes. The content has to be true in its form. Absolutely. Yes.
He has the highest attention span, always. Were there any other questions?
We'll take one last.
Yeah, we should.
Hi, my name is Hormuz. I'm representing a mid-sized digital marketing agency. And what I'm trying to get my head around is considering that inflation is rising in Europe and in North America, and it's seen no end to it. Even at a compounding rate, prices would increase more than 35% in the next 5 years when inflation rises. Do you see that impacting towards more work coming to India in terms of digital? Or do you see more brands trying to explore the European and the North American market using
Indian, Indian agencies as such, and how do you, if the panel were to give any thoughts on how can an Indian agency attract more clients from abroad, that would really help.
That's interesting. We can go around table. Maybe some of you want to go first.
Yes, I've been to a few events where, see, just to give a little background, we are a social listening and analytics platform, work with a lot of digital marketing agencies. We are not into services, so we pitch for them. And I was at a couple of events where I spoke about this idea that why don't you get the services done from the Indian digital marketing agencies, because cost will be down, and you can save at least, if not 4 times compared to what you're paying here. But this was 2018 or so, 2019 when I spoke, and they liked the idea from the cost point of view, but practically speaking, it was not feasible because still, if we look here in India itself, that if there is a brand which whose headquarters is in Bombay, they don't want to even shift the work to Delhi or Bangalore. So I think there's a bit of technical problem. Maybe after pandemic, the mindset might have changed. But we can't say yes or no to it unless we explore. We just have to give the brands internationally and ask them for services, maybe understand from them. But as of now, I have not seen any international brands, still going for the digital marketing agency, which is the proximity issue.
Would you believe that a local footprint, say some point somewhere international, I mean, any country that you want to push through for a mid-sized agency, a touch point should be created, maybe who could probably handle matters in their own dialect, or the one who probably understands their market better and probably relay those thoughts over to an Indian agency? Would you think that could be a consistent form of revenue for Indian agencies moving forward?
So just to give my perspective, we are on the SaaS product side. So it's very easy to push the SaaS product internationally. We have customers across the globe, like a lot of customers in the US, in Middle East. The thing with software sales is like we give a demo, we give them a trial, they like the product, they use the product. But when it comes to services, everyday engagement, which we should be comfortable with. So I think that could be the challenge. But I don't see a lot of digital marketing. This is also trying internationally. Maybe.
I don't know if anybody else wants to add to that, but maybe I have a few inputs. I think you have to look at digital marketing services platform as a series of activities that you would do. So let's say you want to look at operations. I think that's easily exportable. It's already being done. You look at a lot of the large agencies that set up dedicated teams essentially for things like media operations, SEO, what have you. So it just depends on which service. The one service which probably is not that easy to export, and maybe we'll still find a solution towards that, is when it comes to creating content, because a large part of it is context and culture driven. So that is the one aspect where you need to be on ground for you to get a sense of, being closer to the culture as you respond to the right kind of stories or respond with the right kind of stories. So I think if you were to divide the entire stack of services, I'm sure 50% of it is extremely exportable, and there'd still remain about 50% which is not. So that would be the short of it.
Thank you so much. Yes, can we have a big round of applause for our panelists? That was a wonderful interaction. A lot of learnings on stage and off stage. I'd request all our panelists and moderators to please step forward for a group photograph while we set up the stage for our next segment. Request you to just move forward from the tables as well. There were a lot of key nuggets of wisdom in this session, so I request all of you, if you're going to share it outside the world, don't hold back. Let the world know what you've learned right here. Let them benefit from the sessions as well. Just don't forget to use the hashtag BWDDB Almanac. We'd love to be part of that digital conversation. And thank you. Panelists, I request you to stay back with us on stage as the moment is here that we all have been waiting for, and which is the reason why we are here. It is the unveiling of BW Marketing World DDB Mudra Digital Almanac 2022. For this, may I also invite on stage Mr. Gulshan Verma, CEO, Geo Ads, Mr. Dr. Ram Mohan Sundaram, Country Head and Managing Partner, Integrated Media, DDB Mudra Group, and Mr. Ruhail Amit, Senior Editor, BW Businessworld. Can we all give them a big round of applause and welcome them on stage? And can we have our Almanac on stage, please? All right, so we do have Almanac up on stage. Dr. Ram Mohan Sundaram, may I request you to please do the honors, pull the ribbon, unveil the white paper, and let us all join in by applauding. The copy is coming to each of you on stage. I request you to please open it. Request all the dignitaries on stage to please open. To please surround our physical almanac and stand together for a picture, please, holding the book. All right, request all of you to please hold the book facing outward towards the audience. Give a big broad smile. And ladies and gentlemen, we can give a big round of applause. Officially, the BW Marketing World and DDB Mudra Digital Almanac 2022 has been unveiled. The copies will reach you real soon. Thank you so much for joining us. Yes, don't forget to smile. You're on camera. Ladies and gentlemen, the day has officially ended. Thank you all for joining us for the unveiling of the BW Marketing World DDB Mudra Digital Almanac 2022. We would like to invite you now for dinner and cocktails. Once again, thank you, each one of you, for being part of this event and for this memorable evening. I hope there have been great takeaways for each of us, and you've been spreading the word outside this room on digital platforms using our hashtag BWDDBAlmanac. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great evening. Request each one's presence for our networking dinner and cocktails. This is me, Khyati Kawa, your host, signing off. It's been a pleasure to be the host to all of you. Thank you very much.